Hi folks, Jenny Seelig here with another one-take tutorial for you on ukulele. This is my series where I present songs and skills on ukulele without editing myself, meaning that I'm not a video editor, and so I don't have the money to pay a video editor. I will be recording this as a live stream session as if I were teaching you a class or a workshop or we were meeting one-on-one, and then I will post this on YouTube for all to find, and hopefully it will contain useful information for people when they do find this. So basically what I have been doing with this series is teaching different lessons and topics that my patrons over on Patreon are interested in, or that I think I could provide useful information on. I know that you have lots of options out there when it comes to watching ukulele tutorials and content online. YouTube has a ton of really great ukulele teachers. I am fairly new to the game, but I do want to share some things that I have learned over the years and help people figure out different songs. So today is going to be my very first one-take tutorial that is teaching a song. So in the past I've done these on various topics, and you can find a playlist on my channel with the different topics that I have shared so far. But I also want to be able to teach songs this way. So we're going to do this as an experiment. We're just going to roll, and then I will share with you what comes out of this, and you can let me know in the comments what was helpful to you, if you have other things you wish that I would have talked about, what you'd like to see in the future, especially if there are songs of mine that I've covered previously that you might see on my channel that you'd like me to teach in this kind of a format. Let me know. Just don't say edit these more, because at this point that's beyond my capacity. So what we're going to talk about today is a song that is in the cultural zeitgeist right now. It is Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now. And I think many people who are looking at this video will already know that Joni Mitchell made a glorious return to the stage at the Newport Folk Festival recently. And a lot of videos of her set are floating around the internet, and the one I see the most often is for the song Both Sides Now. It is a gorgeous rendition, as all of her renditions always are, of her gorgeous, brilliant song. Joni Mitchell truly is a living genius among us, and I think a lot of people felt like me that we were very lucky to see her performing live again, and to see the photos of her experiencing what looked like great happiness and joy as part of this festival were really touching, as was the performance itself. So I thought, this is a song that I have covered a couple of times. You can find a couple of videos on my YouTube channel, one of me performing it in a fingerpicking style, one of me performing it live. Sorry for the notifications going off in the background. I think that is a device that didn't get turned off before I started rolling. Not mine, but another member of my family's. I performed it a couple of times, and in my free public monthly Zoom play-alongs that I've been doing basically since the pandemic started, we have this in my monthly songbook, and I have an arrangement that has a couple different picking and strumming options. We play it pretty simply, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool to present this in a tutorial format and maybe even update the style and update that chord sheet. So there's an updated arrangement sheet available on my website, newukenewyork.com, and also I think there's a link, there will be a link in the description box of this video, and I will put in some timestamps and things like that so you can skip around if you want to. But basically I want to teach Both Sides Now to you through this video in sort of a simple, almost as if we were one-on-one casual manner. I did look up a little bit about the original song, and the cool thing is that Joni Mitchell is known for retuning her guitar, and she wrote and played and performed in a lot of different tunings that weren't your standard guitar tuning. I do not know yet, this is something I'm interested in learning, but I don't know how to replicate those kinds of different tunings on ukulele. And though I do experiment with tuning up and down to change keys, and I have a baritone which is tuned differently than the G, C, E, A ukulele I'm going to be using today, and today I have a low G, but you could certainly play this song with a high G uke if that's what you have. Anyway, I read that when the song originally came out, and I have here a complete sort of transcription of her songs up to the point that this book was made. When it first came out, I believe in 1967 or so on the album, it was done in an E tuning. Let me look here at this page. in an open E tuning with the capo on fret 2, which would bring it up to an F sharp when she actually sang it. And then in the 1969 version that I found, a live version, I believe, on YouTube and watched, she was doing it in an open D tuning. So you'll often see tutorials, especially for guitarists, that are in open D tuning for this song with the capo on 4. And that, of course, would move it up to, capo on 1 would be E flat, E, F, F sharp. So that's also an F sharp. So F sharp was the key that she often liked to sing this in. I don't know what the Newport Folk Festival key was. Actually, that would be interesting to know. But when I play this with my group and the chord chart I made for my songbook, we've been doing it in G. So slightly higher, which can be hard for people to sing. Joni had and still has an amazing voice with an amazing range, and I'm not Joni Mitchell, but I still find G more or less approachable. It may be a little high for people on the top notes. You could certainly, if it's very high for you, you could try these same GCEA shapes on a baritone if you have a baritone and drop it down a little lower, or you could even detune your strings by 1 or 2 steps and play it a little lower and sing it if you're doing it by yourself. But when we do it in the group, we all have to be in the same key, and it's easiest if we stick to G. So that's what I'm going to teach today, and I want to show you on the screen the chords, and we're going to talk through it, and then I'll probably do 2 playthroughs, one with the chords on the screen and one without the chords on the screen, so that you can play along with me if you want. Remember that on YouTube you can always slow me down if I talk too quickly, which I tend to do because I'm excited, or if you want to play it more slowly, especially if you're practicing or drilling a certain section, you can use the gear icon on the YouTube video in order to change the speed, faster or slower. All right, so let's look at this together. This, I've been trying in my most recent addition to this chord sheet and this arrangement to sort of approximate the original. Of course, Joni played her songs differently. Sometimes it was slower, sometimes it was faster, sometimes it was more upbeat. So you certainly can play around with this and make this your own. And my goal is never to get someone to play it exactly the way I play it, because it changes every time for me how I play it. And I've noticed too that when people make arrangements on ukulele and they are vocalists as well as performers, it is often very hard for them to transcribe exactly what they do, because just as the singing changes a little bit for people from time to time as they're feeling it and that it's moving through their body, the strumming or the picking changes too. And people might add in different flourishes or riffs, or they might strum it slightly differently on different parts of the song than they did the last time. Somebody like someone I admire, Cynthia Lynn, the way she arranges songs, I've noticed that they're never exactly the way she maybe did it in her performance video before she wrote the arrangement out for everybody else. So there's a certain sort of aspect of letting go once you learn a song and then you make it your own, that I would just encourage you to play around with. Don't feel like you need to do this just like I did it, and hopefully you won't get frustrated if I tell you I'm doing one thing and then I do something slightly different in a performance video, because that often happens. We're not robots and we don't play like robots or automatons. So let's look at the chords here on the screen. And again, you can get this on my website. You can also join Patreon if you want to support me doing more videos like this and get it there. Or you can get it in my monthly songbook, which gets updated every month and has this song in it already. And I will be updating that songbook in August, which is tomorrow is August. I'll be updating it this week so that by the time you see this, there may already be this updated version in the songbook. So let's look at the chords real quick. I'm going to try not to make this too long a tutorial, but I do want to talk about these chords because they're not just your standard beginner chords. There's some suspended chords thrown in, and they're G suspended 4 and D suspended 4, or G sus 4, D sus 4. These chords, and we're not going to get into the music theory of it, but basically add a note to your regular G or D chord that makes it sound suspended, makes it sound like it's sort of hanging in the air, waiting for something to happen. Here's G suspended 4. Often what happens in this song is that you then resolve back to the major chord. So if you're on G and you move through it to G suspended 4, then you go back to the G again. That doesn't always happen, and it can be kind of cool to end something on a suspended chord, but most of the time you'll see, or if you're playing around with it by yourself, you'll want to come back to the major chord a lot of the time. If you look here at how G sus 4 is written in this chord diagram, you'll see that it's only 3 fingers, but I play this as a 4-finger chord, and I'm going to take it off, share here, and show you that what I like to do, because so often I'm moving from G to G suspended 4, is I just leave my other fingers in the shape of G, and then I add my pinky to that extra note, the third fret of the A chord, of the A string, sorry. And that makes it a G suspended, even though I have an extra finger that's not doing anything. It's my middle finger, the finger that's further back on the A string. But it just makes it easy for me to go back and forth between the G. And not everybody has a strong pinky finger. It may take a little bit of practice to make that smooth, but it's doable. The other suspended chord is the D suspended 4. And for this one, I like to stack my fingers. Even if you play D another way, which you can make this work if you'd like to play D another way. Whether you play D with 1 finger, or whether you play it with 3 fingers, or whether you play it with 2 fingers on your G, or 1 finger on your G and C, and 1 finger on your E. What you're going to want to do for D suspended 4 is get your, for me, because I'm stacking, get your finger out in front on the E string onto the 3rd fret. So the other 2 fingers stay the same as they are for the D chord, or however you're playing it. You keep your G and your C string the same, and your E string needs to have the 3rd fret pressed down. So I like to play D stacked and just slide my ring finger forward. So D, suspended, D, D, suspended, D. And if you're playing it a different way, you may have to add a finger. See, I'm not very good at that shape. There we go. You can also do it like that. If you're playing it with 2 fingers, you can add a finger. However it's comfortable for you. But these chords are technically optional. You could play the G all the way through that. You could play the D all the way through the section that has D. It's going to be up to you whether you want to add that flavor. I really like to add just like a tiny touch of the flavor and style that Joni has in the original here, and I do that in part with those suspended chords. Let's just look at the other chords real quickly. So you've got a G, we talked about, G suspended 4, then there's a super easy A minor, C, then we do have a barred B minor. And if you are having trouble with bar chords, I do have a one-take tutorial on bar chords. There's D, D suspended 4, then you've got a D7, which you can play as a bar chord, or you can play with your stacked D and then put your pinky on top on the 3rd fret of the C or the A string, sorry, the C note. Because you're coming to that D7 often from the D. So you see it there in the chorus here. I really don't know clouds at all. You're going to go from D to D7. So sometimes it's easiest for me just to not to switch shapes, but to keep my fingers stacked and then throw a pinky on top on the A string. Then you also have C major 7 and C6, although these are also sort of optional because you could just play the C for those in the way they're used in this song. I use them as a walk down from the C to the C major 7 to the C6. C6 is the same as A minor 7, so it's all open strings. So C, C major 7, C6 is all open. That's going to happen at the end of the verses, or rather the choruses. So let's look at how these chords move really quickly. In the verse, you're going to start with a G, and then you're going to go to A minor. I'm just going to move my index down to the A minor note. And then C, I've got my ring finger ready. I can play with my ring. Of course, you can use other fingers. This is just if you want an idea. Then you could put your G back up there. So you're only at that point moving your ring finger 1 string on the same fret from the A to the E to go from C to G. And then you keep on G for a moment, and then you're going to have to switch to that B minor bar chord, which will kind of invite you to swivel your index finger and lay it down over the top of the 2nd fret, and then you can put, I use my ring finger for the 4th fret of the G string, for that B minor, ice cream castles, then back to C. I'm moving my ring finger for that, but you can use a different finger if you like. You could hover your middle finger up near where that's going to go to and move pretty quickly if you like that better. And then back to G again. With every chord change, I kind of think, is there a finger that's shared between these 2 chords, or a fret, where I don't have to move my finger very much? If I don't have to move my finger at all, can I use it as a pivot? Is there a finger that I can plant? I mean, there's all these techniques that you can use to kind of make those changes easier. And if you're at the point where it's hard for you even to move between these chords, I would just practice the changes that are giving you the most trouble. Do it on single strums, do them in the order that they come in the song, and practice, for example, the G to the B minor. Just practice that over and over a little bit to get it into your muscle memory. That's going to help you with those chord changes. Then when we get to the chorus, we have got, oh wait, I didn't finish that. I just did the first 2 lines. Then we've got am feather, we're back to the G, canyons, back to A minor, everywhere. I have A minor still, that you hang on the A minor for a little while, and then you get your D, and you can do the optional suspended here. Then you kind of repeat the beginning of the verse, G, A minor. You can slow me down and watch this again if you need to. C, G, and G. Same pattern again as the beginning of the chord, B minor, C, G. So many G things A minor would have done. You're staying on A minor again. This is again the same as the first half of the verse. In the way, you can choose to do the suspended moment. Now you're in the chorus, and each of these verses is the same in terms of chord movement. Each of the choruses is the same. You're going to go to G. I've looked at A minor, clouds, from C, both sides, G. Now back to C, up, and G, down. We're going back and forth between C and G here, and still, somehow. Now B minor, it's clouds, illusions, I recall. If you're a more advanced player, you could play all bar chords there to go from the B minor to the C to the G. You could do it's clouds, illusions, I recall. So if you know those bar chord shapes, of course you could do that. And then you come to an interesting line. Like I said, you could play these first 3 chords all as C's. I really don't know clouds, and then go to the G. But I like a little walk down there, especially if you're on a low G. But even if you're not, because the low G string is not what's moving. What's moving is your finger on the A string. You're going from 3rd fret, I really, C major 7 is the 2nd fret, and then open, don't know. And you don't have as much time. I'm going to talk about the strumming in a minute, but that's going to be a quick movement. I really don't know. And then you're back to the regular pattern that we'll go over in a minute. Clouds, E minor, D, D7, at all. Back to a G suspended moment if you want to do it that way. And we'll end the song on a single down strum as it shows here. So that's how the chords move. And again, I would encourage you to drill the chord changes that are giving you the most trouble, and just kind of get those into your fingertips before you're trying to get this up to speed, because it will be frustrating if you're trying to play it at the speed that you want to sing it, but you can't make the chord changes that fast. So slow it way down, use a metronome if you need to keep yourself honest about how slow you need to go, and practice those chord changes before you move on to the next section. All right, so now let's talk about strumming. And if you join me in a jam, if you look at my songbook, and if you look at this here on the screen, you'll see I have several different strumming suggestions, several different picking suggestions. But what I want to talk about in this tutorial is what is appealing to me the most right now, having just watched Joni Mitchell perform this song live again so beautifully. And that is to return to kind of the roots of me learning this song from her, where she does a strum that includes a chucking moment. And chucking is where, I think most people watching this video will know, it's where you strum down and then you mute the strings with your strumming hand more quickly than the note can ring out. So you're kind of scraping across and then muting, but you do it so fast that all you get is the scrape of, that's my fingernail going across the strings, and then my hand immediately clamps down. If this is not a skill you have, then I really would recommend, this is another one that would be worth practicing. You don't have to use this skill to play this song. You can play it without the chuck. But if you want to play it, or some people call it a chunk, if you want to play it with the chucking or chunking strum that I'm about to teach you, you need to be able to do this motion. And it's going to be, there throughout the song for me. Now, if you don't want to do that, then you have other options that I've given here, and I'm not going to go through them at length. But for example, I've suggested that you do something like down, down, up. I'm on the G here. That would work. You could do the G, A minor, C, G. That would work. You could do a pluck on that first down instead of that first down of your G string. Pluck, down, up, A minor, C, G. These chords move fast enough that you wouldn't want to do something like an island strum, probably, because you'd have to island strum it very quickly. Both and flows up in your hair. If that's the tempo or the mood you're going for, you certainly could do that. But most people don't like the island strum quite that quickly in a song like this. You're really moving the chords along a little bit fast enough that you don't necessarily want to do an island strum, which is that classic down, down, up, down, up that a lot of us first learn when we're learning strumming patterns. So what I've suggested here is that you kind of have to shorten the strum, which is why I've suggested just a down, down, up, or a pluck down, up. Or the alternate to that I'm teaching today is a down, chuck up, which again on the G string, or on the G chord rather, would sound like this. Down, chuck up. Let's try it just with the first line. G, chuck up, A minor, chuck up, C, chuck up, G. So you can kind of move it along at that tempo. Sometimes Joni did it at this tempo and sometimes she did it slower. So you can also adjust it if you want to do a more slow contemplative version of this. But the live versions that I've been listening to, she was kind of a little bit more upbeat with it. So that's what I'm thinking, that's what I'm channeling in this particular video. Now there are places where you might be able to extend that, and so I've written that you can, like if you have two G's or two D's in a row, you could do a down, chuck, up, chuck up. I'm on the G now. That's basically a chucking island strum, but you're replacing two of the downs with chucks. Down, chuck, up, chuck, up. So like, let's look at, I've looked at clouds that way. You could do, I've looked at clouds that way, chuck, up, chuck, up. You could do that chucking island strum where those two D's come together. I'm going to do something slightly different because I want to throw that suspended chord in there. And so what I found myself playing as I was working through this song and trying to figure out how I wanted to adapt the arrangement was that I ended up playing what's written off to the side here in italics. On the first down, the first D, I'm playing a down, chuck, but no up. So it's just a little bit different from what I've been playing on the other chords. Down, chuck, and then I'm switching to my D suspended by moving my finger out in front, and I'm going up, down, chuck, up, down, up. Oh, sorry, up. Sorry, that's the D is the chord there. I'm going back to the D. Down, chuck, up. So, put together, that would be, I've looked at clouds that way, down, chuck, up. You could add another chuck in there if you want, if you like down, chuck, up. That feels a little like I'm trying to smush too many strums in there though, so that's why I like the simplicity of down, chuck, up. Let's do that one more time. Down, chuck, up. So that's what I find myself playing the most, in the middle where those two D's come together and at the end of the verse where those two D's come together. But I might not do it every time because, again, you're going to have to see how you're feeling when you're playing it. And if you don't want to throw in the Dsus there, or if you want to play it a different way, that you're perfectly within your rights, of course, to make the song work for you. Now, when we come to there are several G's, and there's sort of like a G suspended for G exchange at the end of each chorus, and I really don't know clouds at all, I found myself strumming something a little different for an extended strum. So you can do, let's look at the chucking island strum and see if it works. I really don't know clouds. I'm just doing single strums here so we can check the rhythm at all. Chuck up. Yeah, so you can make that work with two chucking island strums in there, but what I have found myself doing is, and I'll go back to using the down chuck up on the other chords here, except for C major 7 and C6 move so quickly that I really don't have time to do a whole down chuck up. I'm really doing and then I'm doing two ups. Don't know, each of those is one up. Clouds, chuck up, A minor, chuck up, D, chuck up, D7 at all, and it's written here. I'm hammering onto my suspended note, and I'm going to show this to you without the shared chords in just a second so you can see it bigger. But I'm doing down, chuck up, hammer, chuck up, chuck up, down, chuck up, hammer, up, chuck up, chuck up, chuck up. So I'm coming off the suspended on that up after the second chuck. And let me show you what this looks like without the chords on the screen so you can see it a little bit bigger. So I'm doing a G chuck, and then when I come up on this next one, I'm going to immediately put my pinky down so that you can hear. You can just barely hear it. It just rings through a little bit. There's just a hint of that G suspended there. come back to the regular G on my next, after the next chuck on the up. So slowly, down, chuck, up, hammer, up, chuck, G, up, chuck, up, chuck, G, up, sus, up, chuck, G. So however you need to think of that, or if you just need to listen to it and get it into your head. Suggestion. That's just what I found myself doing because I wanted to preserve the chucking sound, but I also wanted to throw in the suspended chords. So if something else works better for you, then of course you should feel free to change what you're doing. So now I want to work through the whole song with the chords on the screen. And it really does repeat. Each verse and chorus together is kind of the same unit. It's just that the lyrics change a little bit. So we won't go super fast, but of course if you need to take it slower, again, change the speed on the YouTube video. And hopefully this will be something you can play along with as you're practicing it, even if you're not strumming it exactly like I'm strumming it. Feel free, again, I'm going to say this so many times, feel free to deviate. But this is just how I have found myself playing it lately after the folk festival and after listening to historic videos of performances of Joni Mitchell playing this live and watching videos. I found myself really wanting to get the chuck in there, which is why I rewrote this arrangement and wanted to do a quick tutorial for it. All right, so let's look at the intro. It's a little bit different than what we were just doing. You're going to be doing a down, chuck up, chuck up. And what I'm doing is I'm changing to my suspended on the up after we have written in G sus 4 here, and then there's an up. That's the up where I'm changing to the G suspended 4, and then I'm going back to my G on the final up, so that it sounds like this: down on G, chuck up, down on sus, sorry, down, chuck up, and then up on the sus, up, chuck up. It's always harder to do slow than it is fast once you've got it up to speed. Let's do that one more time. Down, chuck up, sus, up, chuck, and then the final up is back on G. So that may take a little time to wrap your head around. Let's do it a little faster in case you want to practice this a little more at speed, and let's just turn it around a couple times because you do this line 4 times. So it'll sound like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, G. Let's give this a try. I know if you're just sitting down for the first time with this song, it may be much harder than, say, if you're one of my patrons who's already been playing this in some jams and you're just trying to add in the chuck, which maybe we haven't done previously. But give yourself time, slow it down if you need to, work on sections of it. We're going to do this play along at a slightly slower pace, and then also I'm going to do one without the chords on the screen. So if you want to see what my hands are doing a little closer and have the chords yourself off to the side, or just watch me or whatever, you can also see that. So again, when you're strumming this, you don't have to do everything like a robot. You can do some deviating. So if you find that your fingers are doing something different, don't think, oh, I'm not doing it right. Think, oh, I'm making this my own, which is really cool. So give yourself permission to do that. And if you'd rather do something like picking, I forgot to mention the picking patterns. We sometimes do them in my jams. You can just strum or pick through these simple patterns and see what works best to you. I do use Cynthia Lynn's finger picking notation where we number the fingers, not the strings. So G is your thumb, 1 rather is your thumb on the G string. 2 is your index on the C string, 3 is your middle on the E string, and 4 is your ring finger on the A string. I know that when people number the strings, it goes the other way because A is string 1, but in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4 means G, C, E, A using that 1 finger per string method. I'm sorry that that's confusing to people because there isn't an industry standard of the way that people teach finger picking, but I learned it from Cynthia, so that's how I think of it. And of course, you don't have to do 1 finger per string, but I just want you to know I mean G, C, E, A, and you could do that through this song on every verse, or just one verse, or just on the choruses, or whatever you like. If you're going to do the one where you do your A and your G together, which is the second picking pattern written there, you just need to remember that that pattern repeats again immediately. So you need to be ready to hit that last one again when you come back to the first one, which sounds like this. It's the same counting as the one I just did, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, but here you're doing 1 and 4 together, 2, 3, 1 1 and 4 together, and then you have to go right back to that as you repeat it. So you can do it that pattern. You can also do your G, E, and A together. That's what 1, 3, 4 means. And then hit the index finger, hit your C with your index finger for 2, and do that twice. Bows and flows of angel hair. I think in the live version I did at least 1, if not 2 of the verses that way. If you look at my channel, the version that I posted that was live. A live performance. All right, so let's give this one a try. We're going to go with the chucking strum for the purposes of this video, but if you're playing at home, there's no police, coming out to see if you played it the same way as me, so feel free to deviate and do whatever you want. Let's try this intro here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Moderations in there, or modifications rather, but that was mostly what we talked about beforehand, and you just gotta strum how the spirit moves you sometimes. So again, I hope you did too. A vocal note, because you heard how it was a little bit of a stretch for me with a slightly unwarmed up voice to hit some of those high notes, especially in the syllables of words that they're in. Sometimes the combination of a note plus the vowel that you're trying to sing is a little bit rough. You could, if you're playing this on your own, again, as I said before, tune your whole instrument down a half step or a step. Usually, most ukuleles you can tune down 2 half steps or 1 whole step without losing so much tension on your strings that it's going to immediately go out of tune and sound terrible. Your mileage may vary. You may only find that you like tuning down a half step. You may find you don't like tuning down at all. And you could certainly learn chords for other keys. But to make something lower and just a little bit lower, if I'm playing by myself, I will often tune it down. So G would become G flat, C would become B, E would become D, and A would become, sorry, I just switched from doing it a half step to whole step as I was talking. G, don't quote me on that, we're live, folks. G would become G flat, C would become B, that was correct. E would become E flat, and A would become A flat. Or to tune it down a whole step, your G goes down to F, your C goes down to B flat, your E goes down to D, and your A goes down to G. So you can use a clip-on tuner and do that if you would like to make it just a touch lower, which I would probably do if I were, say, performing this one live. And Joni herself did it in F sharp, not in G like we're doing it. So she did it a half step lower. So you would be in good company, obviously, as we already are just by doing this song. So without making this video too much longer, I just want to do a run through of the whole song, a playthrough, where I don't have the chords on the screen so that you can see me a little bigger. And if you are looking at the chords off to the side, that's great. Or if you just want to watch and see what my fingers do, or you just want to kind of like strum along with you can just lightly mute your fretboard. And if you put your fingers lightly over all the strings, you can just scrape. So if you just want to practice your chucking strum, you can do that too, but that's what we're going to do for this final run through. And then put comments or put questions in the comments so that if there's something that I forgot to talk about, or you hear me do something that you don't think I explained, I can come back and answer those questions in the comments. I'm happy to do that. Or join us on one of our Tuesday play-alongs on Zoom, and we'll do this song together, and you can ask questions there too, because anyone's welcome, not just my patrons. So let's do this playthrough here and see how it goes. All right, here we go. So again, I'm not going to put the chords on the screen for this one because I just want you to be able to, if you want, to be able to look at what I'm doing on the instrument a little bit more. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, I did the intro wrong. There we go. All right, let's try this again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope. Okay, after doing the whole song, I'm trying to do something different in the intro, and I'm throwing myself off. But again, no editor, folks. You're going to get to see this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Flows and flows of angel hair, and ice cream castles in the air, and the fairy tale You know, something happens sometimes when you're playing a song. It happened to me just then, where you get so caught up in the emotion of it and what the lyrics mean to you, and maybe references in your life that come through with this particular song or artists that you love. And you just get kind of carried away, and you might miss a chord or you might crack your voice on a note. But what your family or friends or audience on Instagram or cat will respond to is, and maybe not your cat, but what people respond to is the emotion and the authenticity coming through. So don't worry too much about little bobbles and where you didn't hit the chuck like you wanted to, or you didn't do the strum you meant to do, or you missed that suspended chord. Just try to connect in with those lyrics and with the spirit of the great Joni Mitchell, long may she live, who really gave us a beautiful gift with this song. And I'm so glad that I got to do it, even to an empty screen here, recording it for you. I hope that somebody runs across this video and finds it useful to them in playing both sides now on ukulele. Thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for supporting me. This is not my full-time gig, and the fact that anybody supports me to do this is the reason that I get to do this, and it's wonderful. And I just feel like the more I get to do videos like this, the better I'm going to get at them, and the more I'm going to be able to teach cool things and songs and skills and get to know more of you through both YouTube comments and also through Patreon and through my Zoom jams, again, which are free and anybody can join, to my beginner play-alongs that I do here on YouTube, which anybody can join in the YouTube chat. Just thank you so much, patrons, whether you did it for 1 month or many, and thank you to those of you who watch and comment and encourage me to keep going, because I really do appreciate it. So until our next one-take tutorial, and if you have an idea of what you'd like that to be about, leave it in the comments. I will see you on the internet. And now we have an awkward moment where I turn off the live streaming and we go about our day. Have a good one.